The judge hated me, until the day her son showed up with the note. The gavel was about to fall. Guilty. I felt it. Judge Morgan's cold eyes had been destroying me for weeks. 20 years for a crime I didn't commit just because she chose me as a target. The silence was absolute. My lawyer had her head down. The prosecutor smiled. It was the end of the line for me, and the judge savored it. She cleared her throat. By authority. The back door burst open. "Madam, he's in." A blonde blur shot down the hallway. It was a child. "Arthur!" the judge cried, her face pale, her iron mask melting. It was her son, running onto the dais in the middle of the trial. Chaos erupted. The guards tried to grab him, but the boy was quick. "Mom!" he cried. He squeezed under the grate. Judge Morgan stood there, horrified. "Security! Get him out!" But her voice trembled. The boy grabbed her robe. "You can't arrest her," Arthur shouted, his face red, glaring at me. She tried to grab him, but he struggled. "You have to read!" He shoved a crumpled piece of paper, stained with crayon, into her hand. "Arthur, now!" she whispered, mortified. But the boy pointed at me, his eyes filled with tears. "It's her, Mom! The woman who saved Biscoito!" The courtroom froze. The judge stopped. She looked from her son to me, confusion clouding her anger. Slowly, she unfolded the paper. I saw a drawing of a dog and two figures. She looked at me, the hatred in her eyes wavering, replaced by something unrecognizable. The gavel was still in the air. What was on that note? And who was Biscoito? That was the exact moment my life changed. That boy didn't know. But saving that dog was the only thing that would save my life. My life. But that day, when the judge opened the note, she didn't just discover my innocence. She discovered something that could destroy her entire career. And the look she gave me, it was pure panic. To understand this panic, you need to understand how deep the hole was that she and her accomplices dug for me. And to understand that, you need to know me. My name is Clara Mendes. I am 34 years old. I am a carpenter. And this is my true story. I know what it's like to feel invisible, unfairly judged, with no one to believe you. This story isn't just about a miscarriage of justice. It's about how the smallest moments, the connections we make when no one is watching, can create giant ripples. It's about redemption and how the truth finds a way. If you've ever felt like I did, I ask that you stay with me until the end. And if you're with me, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. This helps me continue telling these stories. But more importantly, I would love to feel your presence. Leave an emotional comment below. The comment can mention which country and city the person is watching from, so I know how far my voice is reaching. I want to know if you're there with me. Now let's go back to the courtroom. The judge is looking at me with panic. The ticket is in her hand. And I'm about to find out what happens when the truth finally finds a way out. The panic in her eyes was new. The hatred I already knew. To understand what that drawing meant, we don't need to stay in this courtroom. We need to go back 3 months. Before the prosecutor's expensive suits, before my public defense attorney looked like she wanted to apologize for existing, and long before I became the defendant. Back then, I was just Clara, the carpenter who believed that a job well done was enough to sleep peacefully. I'm not the kind of carpenter who makes kitchen cabinets. I restore history. I take what time has broken, what people have forgotten, and bring it back to life. Noble woods, joints that don't use a single nail, the soul of a building. That was my gift. And it was this gift that gave me the biggest contract of my life, the restoration of the East Wing of the Municipal Theater. A multi-million-dollar project. It was my golden opportunity, the job that would put my name on the map. I was there day and night. And that's when I started to see. The project was being overseen by Councilor Barros, a man with an easy smile and eyes that never smiled. He was the city man, the one responsible for ensuring that everything went within budget. But it wasn't. I started noticing the discrepancies, invoices for fine woods. But what arrived was second-rate plywood, work hour records for teams I never saw on site. The hole wasn't mine. The hole was in the city's budget, and it was getting bigger and bigger. I'm a carpenter. I understand foundations. And the foundation of that project was rotten. I made the mistake that sealed my fate. I asked questions. "Clara, darling," he said, a greasy grin on his face. "You know your wood. Leave the numbers to us." "Counselor," I said firmly. "This invoice says red oak. What's on the dock is treated pine. Someone is stealing, and my name is on this project." His smile faded, and that was the last time I saw him there. 2 weeks later, the east wing of the municipal theater burned down. It wasn't an accident. Investigators found cans of accelerator. Where? In my tool room, locked with theming key. They found bank transfers, large sums of money deposited into my business account, and then withdrawn in cash. They accused me of fraud, embezzlement, and aggravated arson. The prosecution alleged that I accepted bribes to use inferior materials, and when the inspectors were getting close, I burned everything to hide the evidence. Councillor Barros gave a press conference crying, lamenting the betrayal of the artisan in whom he had so much trust. The hole was already dug, and they threw me in. I lost everything. My workshop, my contracts, my reputation. I was out on bail that my sister paid, using her house mortgage. I spent my days with my lawyer, an overwhelmed woman who stared at the mountain of evidence against me and sighed. "Clara, they have the bank transfers," she said. "It wasn't me. Someone faked it." "Who?" I had no answer. I was broken, invisible. That day, it was raining. One of those cold November rains that seep into your bones. I had just come out of yet another disastrous defense strategy meeting. I was walking aimlessly, soaked to the bone, my head down. That's when I heard the scream. "Cookie!" I looked up. It was a blur. A little dog, a type of terrier, running terrified into the middle of the busy avenue. A car braked. The driver yelled. The dog froze, trembling. Across the street, at the park entrance, was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 7 years old. He was alone, crying hysterically. I didn't think. I knew what it was like to feel small, scared, and with traffic coming towards you. I ran. I yelled at the car. "Stop!" I threw myself onto the wet asphalt. The car stopped inches from me. I grabbed the dog. He was trembling as much as I was. I pressed him against my chest, feeling his little heart beating against my ribs. I dragged myself back to the sidewalk, my knee bleeding, my pants torn, covered in mud and rain. The driver cursed at me and sped off. The boy ran towards me, tripping over his own feet. "Biscuit, you saved him!" He was sobbing, his face red. He hugged me, hugging the dog and my legs, smearing his face on my wet jacket. "Everything's fine," I said, my voice hoarse. "He's fine. Are you okay?" The boy nodded, still clinging to me. I let go of the leash. Barbara was on the phone. He ran. "Barbara?" "My nanny. She's over there." I looked at the park bench. A young woman was standing there, her phone now lowered, staring at us in horror. "Arthur, what have you done? My God!" She ran and grabbed the boy by the arm. "You're dirty. Let him go. What did you do to him?" "I am not." "Mom, she saved Biscoito," the boy shouted, trying to break free from the nanny. "Let's go, Arthur. Your mother will kill me." The nanny looked at me, at my torn clothes, my dirty face. She saw a destitute person, a threat. "Stay away from us." She dragged the boy away, who looked back over his shoulder, his eyes fixed on me. The dog, Biscoito, licked my chin one last time before being pulled away. I stood there, in the middle of the sidewalk, wet, bleeding, alone. It was the most heroic act I had performed in months, and the only witnesses were a terrified nanny and a boy named Arthur. I didn't know the nanny's name. I didn't know the boy's name, other than Arthur. And I certainly didn't know that Barbara was the nanny for Judge Morgan's family, and Arthur was her son. I went home, cleaned my knee, and completely forgot about the incident. After all, I had an arson trial to prepare for. And then the trial began. And that's where I saw her, Judge Morgan. She walked in, and the room went cold. I didn't recognize her, of course. I was just another number on her list, but from day one, it was clear. She hated me. Every motion my lawyer filed, denied. Every objection the prosecutor raised, upheld, Counselor Barrows testified. He wept in court, speaking about how I abused his trust. Judge Morgan looked at him sympathetically. My lawyer tried to point out the discrepancies in the budget that I found. Objection, irrelevant. Upheld. They showed me the security footage of my escape. Me running from the building, 5 minutes before the fire alarm sounds. I was going home, I shouted. My shift was over. Judge Morgan banged the gavel. The defendant will remain silent or be held in contempt. She looked at me every day with a contempt that went beyond justice. It wasn't impartiality. It was personal. I was the dirt on her sidewalk, and she was savoring the moment of sweeping me away. The prosecutor smiled at me. The jury seemed convinced. The whole was complete, and they were about to throw dirt on top. Which brings me back to this moment. The gavel in the air, the prosecutor smiling. Until the boy, Arthur, burst into the room, her son, and he pointed at me. "It's her, Mom, the woman who saved Biscoito." At that moment, I didn't understand the panic on the judge's face. I thought she was just embarrassed that her son had interrupted the court proceedings. I was wrong. Judge Morgan's face was confused. She stared at the crumpled paper in her hand, the drawing done with crayons. She looked at the drawing. Then she looked at me. Then she looked at Counselor Barrows, who was sitting in the front row, smiling, and Barrows's smile froze. The judge wasn't looking at a cute drawing of a dog. Her 7-year-old son, Arthur, had drawn exactly what he saw that day in the park. He drew the biscuit. He drew me, the girl picking up the dog. And in the corner of the drawing, on the park bench, he drew the nanny Barbara. And she wasn't alone. There was a man with her, a man handing her a thick envelope. The judge recognized the man. It was Counselor Barrows. That note didn't just prove my innocence. It proved that Counselor Barrows, the prosecution's star witness, was bribing her nanny. But why? Why bribe the judge's nanny? The judge looked up from the drawing, the blood draining from her face. At that moment, I still didn't understand. Today I know. Her panic wasn't about her career. It was about her son. That bribe wasn't about the trial. It was about Arthur. Barrows was paying the nanny to have access to the child. Her hammer was still in the air, but it wasn't meant for me anymore. The courtroom froze. No one understood what was happening. The jury seemed confused, the prosecutor irritated, my lawyer hopeful for the first time. And I was just beginning to understand. Judge Morgan didn't look at the prosecutor. She didn't look at her son, who was now being held by a court officer, looking confused. She looked at a single man in the gallery. "Counselor Barrows," she said. Her voice was no longer the voice of a judge. It was cold. It was the sound of breaking glass. Barrows, his face pale, tried to stand, adjusting his tie. "Your Honor, this is security." The judge's voice cut through the air. "Arrest Counselor Barrows." Chaos erupted again, but this time it wasn't because of a child. It was screams of confusion. The prosecutor jumped from his chair. "Your Honor, on what basis? This is a complete disrespect to—" "Silence!" Judge Morgan banged the gavel. But it wasn't a bang of authority. It was a bang of panic. She was trembling. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, "what's in that note?" The judge looked at the crumpled paper in her hand. She looked at me. And at that moment, her fate was, as I said, in the hands of the judge, my hands. She couldn't reveal the contents of that note. If she said, "This man was bribing my nanny," she would be admitting that the entire trial was compromised. She would be admitting that she had a personal connection with the star witness. If she didn't say anything, she seemed crazy. She stared at me. The hatred had vanished. The panic was still there. But there was something new. A plea for help. She looked at her son, at Barros being handcuffed by confused security guards, and at me. She was trapped. I know what you're thinking. In that second, I felt power. For the first time in months, I wasn't the victim. I wasn't the defendant. I was the only person in that room, besides the judge, who understood the truth. And I saw her face. She was no longer Judge Morgan, the executioner. She was just a mother, terrified that she had put her own son in danger. That feeling of being invisible, of shouting the truth to a world that doesn't want to hear it. It's the loneliest feeling on the planet. I'm telling this story because someone out there, right now, might be feeling exactly like this. Invisible, unfairly judged, waiting for a crayon note that might never arrive. If you're with me, if you've ever felt this way, I just want you to know that I see you. I would love to know that I'm not alone in saying this. If you can, and if you're feeling what I'm feeling, please consider subscribe on this channel, and more than that, leave a comment below. It doesn't have to be long. Just tell me which city and country you're watching. I want to see how far this story of injustice and hopefully redemption is going. I want to feel your presence with me as we get through the rest of this. Thanks. The judge was looking at me. The courtroom was in chaos. The prosecutor demanded answers. And Counselor Barros was being handcuffed, shouting about abuse of power. What did the judge do next? She couldn't use the ticket, but she could use me. She looked at my defense attorney, who was pale. Dr. Rios, do you have any motions at this time? My lawyer stammered. What? A motion, Your Honor, given the interruption and the new circumstances that seemed to have come to light. The judge was giving me a way out. She was giving me herself an exit. My lawyer, finally understanding, stood up. Your Honor, in light of the evident contamination of the prosecution's key witness, the defense requests the annulment of the trial. The prosecutor exploded. Annulment? Based on what? On a child's drawing? Based, Judge Morgan said, her voice now firm as steel. On the arrest of your star witness, inside my court, for attempting to coerce or influence a member of my household. She hadn't said bribe yet. She was clever. The jury is dismissed, she banged the gavel, and this trial is annulled. It was pandemonium. The jury was ushered out. Reporters who had been dozing in the back scrambled to get their phones. Judge Morgan stood up. She didn't look at me. She rushed off the dais, went straight to her son, Arthur, and hugged him so tightly she almost broke him. Was I free? No. Not so fast. The trial was annulled. But the charges still existed. I wasn't declared innocent. I was back to square one. But this time, something was different. As the guards led me to the waiting room, the prosecutor, his face red with fury, came up to me. This isn't over, Mendes. You think this farce in court will save you? We're going to schedule a new trial. And next time, there won't be any children to save you. I looked at him. The fear I had carried for months had diminished. I'm not worried about next time, I said, because I understood something he didn't. Counselor Barros was the witness, Cher, and Barros was now a desperate man. And Judge Morgan? She was no longer my enemy. She was a mother with a child in danger, and she knew I was the only other person who had seen the connection between Barros and her nanny. The game had changed. I was no longer a pawn. I was the most important player on the board. It was Judge Morgan. She was without her robe. In her expensive suit, she looked smaller, but somehow more dangerous. Her face was exhausted, the judge's mask replaced by that of a worried mother. She closed the door. The click echoed in the room. She didn't sit down. The trial was annulled, she said, her voice low. The charges remain. Do you understand that, Ms. Mendes? I nodded. I understand. Counselor Barros was arrested for attempted bribery and coercion, but he will be released. His lawyers are good, and the only witness against him is a 7-year-old drawing and the word of a nanny who has probably already fled. Barbara, I said. The judge looked at me in surprise. Yes. Barbara. She's not answering the phone. She disappeared from the apartment. Barrows silenced her or paid her to disappear. Silence. I could feel the hum of the fluorescent lights. Why are you here? I asked. Judge Morgan's eyes locked on mine. The prosecutor, Mr. Davies, he's furious. He's going to request a new trial, expedite the process. He wants you convicted. He believes today's incident was a setup by you. A setup? I didn't even know who your son was. I know. That little word. I know. It was the first time she admitted my truth. What did Barrows want with his son? I asked. The judge walked to the tiny window, which overlooked a concrete courtyard. I don't know, and that's what terrifies me. Mr. Barrows and we've known each other for a long time. He's powerful. He has friends in the mayor's office, in the prosecutor's office. At the municipal theater, I added. She turned around. Yes, you claimed he was embezzling funds. You were the only one who saw it. I tried to warn them. Nobody listened. Then the fire started. Clara. She used my first name. The sound was strange. The fire you're being accused of. I reviewed the expert's report, the accelerant, the point of origin in your tool room, the bank transfers. I was framed, I said, my voice rising. I told you so. Those transfers, the money went in and out on the same day. I never touched it. Exactly, she said. It went into one offshore account and out into another. A classic money laundering operation. But Prosecutor Davies argued it was his payment. I believed him. Why did you hate me so much? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me for months. She hesitated. The truth was ugly. My brother, he was a contractor, like you. He started small, proud of his work. And then he started cutting costs, fraud, inferior materials. A building collapsed. People were hurt. I saw him in court, giving the same excuses I heard from you. I saw you, and I saw him. I had already condemned you before the trial even began. It was a confession. Not of a crime, but of something worse for a judge. Prejudice. I am not her brother, I said, my voice firm. No, she said. I know that now. My son's drawing. Arthur is obsessed with details. The watch the man was wearing, the way the nanny was. He draws what he sees. That man. Barrows. And he was handing over money. She approached the table. Barrows wasn't bribing me. Not directly. He didn't need to. He was paying my son's nanny to get information. What information? My schedules, my movements, when I was at home, when Arthur was alone. The air left my lungs. It wasn't about the trial. It was about kidnapping. It was about threats. He was building an insurance policy, the judge said, her voice trembling with anger. If something went wrong with his scheme, if I were assigned to his case, he would have my son. He would control me. But his case, no? It was for you, I said. Theme, that was the case. Exactly. And you were the only loose end that could connect the fire to him. He needed you convicted, quickly and quietly. He used his contacts in the prosecutor's office to ensure that Mr. Davies took the case. He knew Davies was ambitious. And he knew about me. He knew about my history with fraud cases. He delivered. You, Clara. You were a sacrifice to keep me busy and away from the real story. Everything fell into place. Her hatred, the prosecutor's haste, the perfect evidence. I wasn't the criminal. I was the distraction. What happens now? I asked. Now, said Judge Morgan, Mr. Davies is going to try to bury you, and Barrows is going to use all the power he has to get out of this. He's going to claim that the money for the nanny was a loan, that she was having problems. He's going to create a narrative. So we're stuck. No. The judge looked at me, and the iron mask was back, but this time it wasn't directed at me. It was directed at the world. I can't investigate Barrows. It would be a conflict of interest. I can't use my son's ticket. It would be an immediate annulment of any evidence found. But you, he can. I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Me? I'm being accused of arson. I'm broke. Nobody will talk to me. Your lawyer, Dr. Rios. She's a public defender, which means they underestimate her. But she's smart. Judge Morgan picked up a paper napkin from the table. She wrote a name and a phone number on it. Who is that? A man who owes me a favor. He's a forensic accountant. He worked on my brother's case. He's the best. Tell him I sent you. He'll analyze the bank transfers they used to incriminate you. The ones that Prosecutor Davies conveniently stopped investigating as soon as they pointed to you. She went to the door. Your Honor? I called. She stopped. Why should I trust you? You've spent weeks trying to put me in jail for 20 years. She turned around, and the vulnerability in her face was shocking. Because Barros wasn't just trying to control me. He was watching my son. He had pictures of Arthur at the playground. He knew his dog's name. You saved Biscoito. You saved my son, Clara. You just didn't know it. She opened the door. I annulled the trial. That gives you time. Your bail is still valid. But the prosecutor will request a new hearing to revoke it. You have 48 hours. 48 hours for what? To find the nanny. To find where the money went. To prove that the fire wasn't the crime. It was the cover-up. Find the nanny, Clara. Find Barbara. She's the only one who can connect Barros to all of this. And stop being the carpenter. Start being the investigator. My son's life and his freedom depend on it. She left. I was alone in the room. I looked at the napkin with the number. I picked it up. At that moment, my face was no longer that of a victim. It was that of someone on a mission. This is crazy, Clara, said Dr. Rios, tapping her fingers on the steering wheel. Judge Morgan is using us. This is highly unethical. If the prosecutor finds out we're working with information from her, the prosecutor is already trying to bury me, I said, my eyes fixed on the front door of the building. Did you see what the forensic accountant found? The offshore account that paid you? It's a front, but the money that... It went out. It went to a dozen smaller accounts. Regular payments. One of them, Barbara Silva, the nanny. But look at this. The same offshore account paid for the security company that Councilor Barros hired for the municipal theater. The same company that investigated the fire and found me guilty. Barros wasn't just robbing the city, I told Dr. Rios. He was paying himself through fake security contracts. The fire he was the cover-up. He burned the evidence of the fraud, and I was the perfect person to blame. That's fine, said Rios, but that doesn't help us find Barbara. The doorman said she moved. She hasn't moved, I said. She's scared. Her apartment is 3B. I watched. The lights don't turn on. But last night, someone ordered Chinese food for 3B. Rios looked at me. You're scaring me, Clara. I'm a carpenter, I said, opening the car door. I noticed the details. Stay here. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, call the police and call the accountant. I got out of the car and the rain hit me like a slap. Barbara's building was one of those places with fake security, a doorman who looked like he was 100 years old and a heavy glass door. I couldn't just go in. Dr. Rios was in the car, ready to call the police, but that would be too late. I needed Barbara, now. I pressed the intercom button for apartment 3B. Static. Again. Nothing. I was about to try and force the service door open when a pizza delivery guy appeared, running from the rain. Who? He barked at the intercom. A metallic voice replied, 4D. Leave it at the door. The delivery man huffed, and the doorman, without looking up, pressed the button that unlocked the door. I grabbed the door before it closed. I didn't take the elevator. Elevators are traps. I climbed the service stairs, 2 steps at a time, the smell of bleach and damp garbage. My heart pounded in rhythm with my feet against the concrete. 3rd floor. The hallway was silent, the thick carpet muffling any sound. I arrived at 3B. I knocked on the door. Barbara Silva, I know you're there. My name is Clara Mendes. Silence. I could hear her breathing inside. Barbara, they're going to arrest me again in less than 48 hours. Judge Morgan, her son, Arthur, Barros is paying you to keep quiet about what? Stronger. Barbara, he won't protect you. He framed me for arson. What do you think he'll do to you, the only witness who can link him to bribery? The safety chain slipped inside. The door opened a crack. She was young, in her early 20s, pale with terror. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked like a ghost. "What do you want?" she whispered. "The truth. The same thing that will set me free will set you free." "He's going to kill me," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "You don't understand. He's not just an advisor. Those men, the theater's security guards." "I know," I said, gently pushing the door open. "They paid you." I entered the apartment. It was dark. Piles of Chinese takeout boxes. She was living like a prisoner in her own home. "He gave me money," she said, recoiling. "I didn't know at first. He said it was a bonus from the judge, a gift for taking such good care of Arthur. He was so nice. Councillor Barros, he would meet me at the park." "What was he asking for?" "Small things." "Does the judge seem stressed? Where is she going to have dinner tonight? What toys does Arthur like?" It seemed harmless. Then, "So what, Barbara?" She reached for her bag, her hands trembling. She took out a small flash drive. "A week ago. He gave it to me. He said that if I wanted to help the judge, I should put this on her home office computer. He said it was security software to protect her family." My blood ran cold. It wasn't about kidnapping. It wasn't just about information. "Did you do that?" "I'm not an idiot," she yelled, and for the first time I saw anger, not fear. "I know what a keylogger is. I know what malware is. I told him I did it, but I didn't. And that's when he changed." The smile disappeared. "He said I had made a very bad choice. He said that if something happened to him, something would happen to me. He gave me more money and told me to disappear, to be quiet." "What's on that flash drive?" I asked. "I don't know. I plugged it into my old laptop, one that's not on the internet. It didn't seem to be just a keylogger. It was files." "Which files?" I didn't understand. They looked like construction records, account numbers, spreadsheets. But it was all encrypted. That's what he was trying to do, plant tar on the judge's computer. The truth hit me like a punch. He wasn't trying to throw information. He was trying to place information there. He wasn't going to incriminate the judge, I said, realizing the diabolical plan. He was going to give her the gift of finding evidence against his competitors. He was using Judge Morgan to clear the way for him. And if she didn't cooperate, he would expose her for having illicit files on her computer. He had her anyway. And he had used me, the carpenter, to burn the evidence of the fraud, original of him. Barros was a master at playing with multiple layers. "Barbara," I said, grabbing her arm, "we have to get out of here. This flash drive, it's everything." "I can't. There's a black car parked down there. It's been there for 2 days. A black sedan. They're watching me." At this very moment, we hear theeting from the elevator in the hallway. We both froze. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. The carpet couldn't muffle them. They stopped. They didn't hit each other. The sound of a master key being inserted into a lock. "Quick!" I hissed. "Fire escape. Do you have one?" "In the kitchen." We ran to the kitchen. I locked the door behind us, knowing it would only buy us seconds. Barbara was struggling with the jammed window on the fire escape. The front door lock slammed shut on the floor. The door burst open with a bang. "Let's go!" I pushed Barbara out the window. The metal grate rattled beneath our feet. We were 3 stories high, at the back of the building, with the cold rain whipping at us. "Get down!" I yelled. We heard a loud bang coming from the kitchen. They were breaking down the door that I had locked. We descended the metal staircase, our footsteps echoing in the alley. My knees protested. Barbara was sobbing, slipping on the wet steps. We jumped the last few meters. I landed awkwardly, twisting my ankle. A sharp pain shot up my leg. I ignored it. "Corey." We ran through the dark alley. We reached the street in front, soaked and breathless. Dr. Rios saw us. Her car screeched to a stop right in front of us. Come in, she shouted. We threw ourselves into the back seat. "Go, go, go!" As the car sped away, I looked back. 2 men in suits came running out of the building. They didn't look like security guards. They looked like assassins. They looked at our car. They grabbed our cell phones. They knew where we were going. "My God, Clara, who are they?" cried Dr. Rios, her pale face reflected in the rearview mirror. Barros's men, I said, breathless, clutching my ankle. They weren't there to scare her. They were there to get that flash drive and to silence us. Barbara was huddled in the seat, trembling, but she was still gripping the flash drive so tightly that her knuckles were white. "Where do we go?" Rios said. "We can't go to the police. Prosecutor Davies will arrest us for obstruction and confiscate the flash drive. We can't go to my house," I said. "They'll follow us." "The accountant?" Rios suggested. "No," I said. "They know who he is. Judge Morgan. They wouldn't dare go after her, not directly." "Clara, this is crazy. We can't go to the judge's house." "We're not going to her house," I said, the pain in my ankle turning to a cold clarity. "Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. The prosecutor scheduled the hearing to revoke my bail. He wants to do it quickly, before Barros gets into more trouble. It's the only place where we'll be safe." "Where, Clara?" "In court, in front of everyone. We're going to return Barros's evidence, right in front of everyone." It was the longest night of my life. The three of us, me, Dr. Rios, and Barbara, didn't go home. We went to the only place Barros wouldn't have thought to look, the forensic accounting office of Mr. Aris, the man Judge Morgan had recommended, an old building downtown with steel doors. While Dr. Rios and Barbara were trying to sleep, Aris and I worked. "The encryption is military grade," he said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm not going to be able to break it in 8 hours." My heart sank. "So, it's pointless?" "I didn't say that." He smiled. "I don't need to break the encryption. I just need to prove where it came from. Casing, from the file. The sender's name in the metadata. The file was created and encrypted on a server that, on paper, belongs to Barros Holdings International." He turned the screen towards me. He wasn't just trying to plant evidence. He was trying to plant their own cash books on the judge's computer. If she accused him, he would destroy her for illegally stealing evidence. If she didn't accuse him, he would blackmail her. He put her in a dead end. We arrived at the courthouse at 7:45 in the morning. Prosecutor Davies was already there, laughing with a colleague. He saw us come in. His smile was one of pure contempt. He thought we were sheep walking to the slaughter. He didn't see Mr. Aris sitting quietly in the gallery with a thick briefcase on his lap. He didn't see Barbara, whom we kept behind us. And then she walked in. Judge Morgan. Her eyes scanned the room. She saw me. She saw Davies. The iron mask was back. The hammer struck. Case 739, the state against Clara Mendes. Hearing for revocation of bail. Prosecutor Davies stood up. "Your Honor, this will be swift. The defendant is a clear flight risk. Last night, she was positively identified harassing and coercing a key witness, Ms. Barbara Silva. We request the immediate revocation of bail." He sat down, smugly. Judge Morgan looked at my lawyer. "Dr. Rios?" Dr. Rios stood up, calmly. "Your Honor, the prosecution is mistaken. Ms. Mendes did not coerce anyone. She rescued Ms. Silva, Ms. Silva is here today, voluntarily, to testify about who is really coercing her." "Objection!" Davies shouted. "This is a bail hearing." "Silence, Mr. Prosecutor." The judge's voice was icy. "Your motion is based on the alleged coercion of this witness. I will hear it. Ms. Silva, come forward." Barbara walked to the pulpit. Her legs were trembling. "Ms. Silva," the judge began, "were you coerced by Ms. Mendes?" Barbara took a deep breath and looked at me. Then she looked at Davies. "No, Your Honor, I was coerced by him." She pointed to Prosecutor Davies. The room choked. "Objection! This is an outrage!" Davies yelled. "And for him," Barbara continued, her voice gaining strength, "for Counselor Barros." The back door of the courthouse opened, and there he was, Counselor Barros. He was there to meet with Davies to witness my end. He saw Barbara in the courtroom. The blood drained from his face. "She's lying," Barros shouted from the doorway. "Arrest that woman." "Your Honor," interrupted Dr. Rios, "Ms. Silva has proof. Proof that Counselor Barros not only bribed her to gain access to her son, but also attempted to plant fabricated evidence on her personal computer. Rios placed the flash drive in the bag of evidence on the table. "This is absurd," shouted Barros, stepping forward. "It's her word against mine." "No, it isn't," said a new voice. Mr. Aris, the accountant, stood up from the gallery. "It's not her word against yours, Counselor. It's your metadata against yours." The pen drive contains an encrypted file created and originating from your personal servers. A file that, coincidentally, matches in size and creation, date your fraudulent accounting books for the municipal theater project. Barros froze. Davies was livid. "Your Honor, you can't allow this." "Mr. Davies," Judge Morgan interrupted, her voice low and deadly. "Given your obvious and, I would say, conspiratorial involvement with Counselor Barros, you are dismissed from this case. In fact, you are dismissed from the prosecution." "You can't do that," he hissed. "I can." She looked at Barros, who was being surrounded by court officers. "Counselor Barros, you are under arrest for attempted bribery, witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and, yes, let's add arson to the list. Officers, use the defendant's handcuffs. It seems she won't need them anymore." It was poetic. The same guards who had dragged me out of that room days before were now handcuffing Barros, who looked at me with a hatred that I was finally no longer afraid of. Judge Morgan banged the gavel. Hearing adjourned. The judge, of course, recused herself. A special prosecutor was appointed. Davies was dismissed. Barros, faced with the evidence from the pen drive and Barbara's testimony, was sentenced to 25 years. The charges against me were dropped, to my detriment. The chapter was closed. I saw Judge Morgan one last time, not in a courtroom. It was a month later. I was in the park, the same park. I was thinking about how to rebuild my workshop, my life. She was there, sitting on a bench, no toga, no suit, just a mother in jeans watching her son. Arthur was running, laughing, throwing a ball to Biscoito. The judge saw me. She stood up and walked over to me. "He seems happy," I said. "He is," she replied. "Thanks to you, twice." There was a pause. "Mrs. Mendes, Clara, I'm so sorry." I nodded. "I know. What are you going to do now?" she asked. "I'm a carpenter," I said. "My job is to take what's broken and fix it, to bring it back to life. I think I'll start with my own." She extended her hand. I shook it. "My name is Clara Mendes, and this is my story. I know what it's like to feel invisible, to be judged unfairly. I know what it's like to shout the truth and have no one to listen. This platform is where I finally found my voice. If my story touched you, if you believe the truth, he must, to find a way, I ask that you help me make this voice reach further. Please leave a like. It's like a sign to me, saying, "Clara, I heard you." Subscribe on the channel because there are so many other stories like mine of people who feel invisible and their stories need to be told. Share this video. You never know who's on the other side, desperately needing a sign of hope, needing to know that a crayon drawing might be on its way. And finally, leave a comment. Tell me if you've ever felt this way. I want to read and hear it, your voice. Never underestimate the power of a small act. You don't know whose life you're about to save. And sometimes, that life is your own. Thank you for listening.